Solving a series of linear equations sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. All you need to do to solve a series of linear equations is graph each line that the equation represents on a coordinate grid. So graph one line, then the next equation, whatever it is, you'll graph that line, and wherever they intersect is the solution to that series of equations. So the hard part is going to be getting these equations into a line on this coordinate grid. But it's pretty easy once you know all the steps. Let's go through them. So right away we can see that it's in the form that we want an equation to be to graph it on a coordinate grid like this, because y, this variable y, is by itself on one side of the equal sign, so we can ignore that. Now we're good. It tells us that we're good to go to graph this thing. The next part, minus 2x. The minus here tells us something very important. It tells us that our line for this equation is going to be going down from left to right, like that, or like that, or like that. We just know it's going to be going down from left to right by looking at that minus. This 2 here tells us how steep the line is going to be going down. It tells us that for every one spot over, it's going to go 2 spots down because of this 2. We count 2 spots down for every one spot over. So the line is going to be that steep. If it was minus 5x, then it would be 5 spots down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for every one spot over. So it would be steeper. But this is a minus 2x. The last part, this plus 3, tells us where our line is going to cross this y-axis. It tells us that we're going to cross above the x-axis because this is a positive. We're going to cross this line here above this line because it's a plus 3. And the 3 tells us how many spots above this y-axis we are going to cross the x-axis. So we count up 1, 2, 3 and put a point there. That's our first point. And we go back to this middle part of the equation. Minus 2x tells us the line goes down and that the line goes down 2 spots, 1, 2, for every 1 spot to the right. So we've got 2 points. We're ready to put this line on this graph here. It will be something like that. Now we graph this second equation to see where they cross paths. Y is good. Y equals x minus 4. So x is the same as a plus 1x. Because it's not a negative, we know it's a positive. And because it's a variable alone by itself, we know that we can substitute a coefficient of 1. So it's plus 1x. That tells us, the plus here tells us the line's going up, and the 1 tells us it goes up 1 spot up for every 1 spot to the right. The minus 4 will tell us where we cross the x-axis again. So where we cross this middle line is minus 4. So because it's a minus, we know we're crossing below the x-axis, and we're crossing 4 spots below the x-axis. So we count down 1, 2, 3, 4. That will be the first point for this line. Go back to this middle part, the slope, the plus 1x or x, same thing, tells us we count up 1 spot for every 1 spot over. So now we've got those 2 points. We're ready to graph this line. Something like that. And we see that we cross paths right here. That's our answer. And the way you write out an answer is x, y. So to find out x, to find out where this little point is, you count how many spots from the y-axis you are to the right. So we count 1, 2, and almost a half. So we'll just call it 2.5. It's not going to be exact, it'll just give us an idea. So if we have a multiple choice question, we'll be able to get the right answer because we'll be close enough. So 2.5x, because we're on this side of the x-axis, it's not a negative, it's a positive. If we were on this side somewhere, then it would be a -4 or whatever. So that's our x. To find our y, we're going to count how many spots we are away from this x-axis. Because it's below the x-axis, it's going to be a negative number. So we count comma, negative, whatever. So we count down from this x-axis. We count down 1, and looks like almost a half again, so we'll call it -1 point, not quite a half, 1.25. So this is our solution, 2.5 comma -1.25. If you want to double check it to make sure you didn't mess something up like the slope of the line or the direction of the line, you can plug these numbers in to our equation here and see if we are close to what we're expecting. So if we use y equals -2x plus 3, we think y is about -1.25. So instead of y, we'll rewrite the equation with our solution for y, which is -1.25 equals -2x. So -2, and x we figure is about 2.5 plus 3. Let's see if when we combine these numbers we come somewhere close to -1.25. So -2 times 2.5 is -5 plus 3. -5 plus 3 is -2. So when we check, we see that we're coming up with -1.25 is -2. It's not, they aren't actually equal to each other, but it's close enough. We know that we're in the ballpark here. We're not going to find the exact answer because I'm just freehand putting these lines on this graph, and I don't know exactly where they're crossing between these points, but they're close. They're within 1 unit of each other, and they're both negative. So I would be confident in saying that this is my answer on a test where you'll have multiple choice answers and just find the one that's closest to what you came up with.